My sister accidentally sent me a 12-second voice memo meant for our mom, and in it she said one sentence that shattered everything I thought I knew about my family. At least, that's what I was sure happened, because when you hear, "We need to decide what to do about her," your brain fills in monsters. But what if the monster wasn't them? It was the story I'd been telling myself, and believing that destroyed the people on my side. If you're interested in this topic, hit the like button, subscribe, and type interested in the comments, and I will give you a heart. I've replayed that 12-second voice memo so many times that my phone should have developed abandonment issues. It arrived on an ordinary Sunday morning, the kind of morning so harmless and uneventful that nothing dramatic should have existed inside it. But life has a way of slipping a knife between your ribs exactly when you're relaxed. My sister Lily and I had just spent the last 15 minutes sending stupid memes to each other. She sent one of a cat wearing sunglasses. I sent one of a raccoon stealing a taco. We laughed in text bubbles. We were fine, normal, predictable, very much not the kind of sisters who had secret conversations behind each other's backs. Or so I thought. When her next notification popped up, voice message. I didn't hesitate, I hit play, and that was the moment my stomach flipped so violently I genuinely thought I was going to be sick. First came the shaky inhale, Lily's, then the sound of her footsteps pacing across what sounded like hardwood. Then her voice, low, tense, urgent. We need to decide what to do about her. Her, me, my name without being spoken. Before my brain could even process that, I heard my mother in the background sigh, the kind of sigh she only used when she was stressed or disappointed. Then Lily again, whispering now like she was afraid someone would hear. Before she finds out. The audio cut abruptly, 12 seconds. 12 seconds that completely rewired the way I saw my family. I didn't breathe. I didn't blink. My heart didn't beat. It clenched. I replayed it once, twice, 5 times, 10. Every repetition made my hands shake harder. And the worst part? The moment the memo ended, my mind did something horrifyingly automatic. It started filling in the blanks with every fear I had ignored for months. The canceled family dinners, the accidental group photos I was never invited to, the holiday plans that somehow never included me. The sudden drop in enthusiasm whenever I walked into a room. Little moments I had brushed off as coincidences, or timing, or life being life. But as I listened to that memo, those moments rearranged themselves into a story I had refused to read. They were planning something, talking about something, and whatever it was, it involved me, and they didn't want me to know. My first instinct was denial. Maybe they weren't talking about me. Maybe they were talking about a neighbor, a coworker, a cousin. Except my mother calling someone her only ever referred to me or my sister. And since Lily and Mom were the ones talking, that left one option, me. My second instinct was anger, the kind that tightens your chest and makes you want to overturn every piece of furniture in your house. Because for months, I had bent over backwards trying to reconnect with them. I showed up. I called. I offered help. I offered support. I apologized for things I didn't do just to ease tension I didn't cause. And still, I always felt one step outside the doorway of my own family. Now I knew why. Or I thought I knew why. And that's when the third instinct hit. The one that didn't feel like instinct at all, but like gravity. Confusion. Not gentle confusion either, but the loud, crashing kind that makes you question your own reflection. Because if there's one thing about me that has always been true, it's this. I am usually wrong when I am absolutely certain I'm right. I know that about myself. And still, in that moment, the certainty felt absolute. It felt like betrayal. So instead of calling Lily for clarification, I did the stupid, predictable, emotionally catastrophic thing. I sat on the edge of my bed and let my mind create a narrative with zero evidence and maximum suspicion. I pictured them sitting together, whispering about me, plotting something behind closed doors, preparing to decide my fate like I was some kind of liability. And because my brain wasn't finished torturing me, it threw in a montage of every moment from childhood where I felt second place, last choice, or invisible. I told myself I deserved better. I told myself I was done letting them treat me like an afterthought. I told myself this was the proof I had been waiting for. But beneath all those fiery declarations was a quieter, uglier truth. I was scared. Not the kind of scared where something is chasing you, the kind where something might be, and the uncertainty itself eats you alive. I kept playing the memo over and over, searching for a second voice, a door creak, a keyword, anything that would explain what "do about her" meant. Nothing, just those 12 seconds and my imagination filling the silence with disaster. Eventually, after what felt like hours, I stood up, grabbed my keys, and told myself I needed air, but the truth was simpler and harder. I needed distance, because I didn't trust myself not to scream at Lily if I called her. I stepped outside, walked to my car, sat in the driver's seat, and immediately replayed the memo again. That was when everything shifted the second time, because buried under Lily's pacing, under the panic in her voice, under my mother's sigh, I finally heard something I had missed all morning. Not a word, not a clue, a tone. Fear. Not cruel fear, not conspiratorial fear, not the plotting against me kind, a different kind, the kind people have when they're worried for someone, not about them. And that tiny realization should have stopped me, should have made me ask questions, should have softened every sharp assumption clawing at my mind. But it didn't, because once the heart feels betrayed, the mind stops listening. And I was already too deep in the story I had written, even though the real story, the true story, was nothing like the one I had convinced myself of. The truth, which I would learn much too late, was nothing close to betrayal. It was the opposite. But by the time I discovered that, the damage was already done. And the worst part, I was the one who caused it. If only I had asked. If only I had waited. If only I had listened instead of assumed. But assumptions move faster than truth. And mine were already sprinting toward a disaster I couldn't see coming. I didn't drive anywhere. My keys stayed in the ignition, untouched, while I sat motionless in the seat like someone waiting for their brain to reboot. But instead of calming down, everything kept spiraling. Every memory from the past year twisted itself into confirmation that my family had been moving me like a chess piece behind my back. The time my mother forgot to tell me about a family dinner, intentional. The week my sister didn't reply to my texts, avoidance. The sudden quietness in our group chat, strategy. Every coincidence became evidence. Every misunderstanding became motive. And as those thoughts kept multiplying, I finally did what impulsive, emotionally wounded people do best. I opened my messages and typed out a text to Lily that should have stayed inside the drafts folder forever. At your voice memo. Don't worry, I won't get in your way. Whatever you two are planning, I'm not playing. I didn't send it. Not yet. Something inside me grabbed my wrist metaphorically and whispered, "Wait." And for once I listened. Because as much as I felt hurt, something else crept in. A tiny, unwelcome voice reminding me that Lily had never betrayed me before. She had been my person, my confidant, my first phone call in every crisis, the only one who held my secrets without turning them into family gossip. She wasn't perfect, but she wasn't cruel. She wasn't calculating. She wasn't capable of the kind of manipulation my fear was painting her with. And still, I couldn't shake the sinking feeling. So instead of sending the message, I opened her memo again. The same words hit, but this time I closed my eyes and just listened to pieces instead of the whole. The pacing, the whisper, the urgency, the breath that caught in her throat halfway through a sentence, The sigh from Mom, not annoyed, not disappointed, tired, exhausted, heavy, like someone worrying about something bigger than an argument or secret plan. My chest tightened, because the more I listened, the more it sounded like fear, not scheming. Fear for someone. Could it be me? Maybe. But fear about what? The unknown only made my imagination shift from anger to anxiety. If they were worried for me, why? I hadn't asked for help. I hadn't shared anything dramatic. Nothing was wrong, at least nothing I had told them. That's when the guilt hit, sharp and unexpected. I had been distant the last few weeks. Not intentionally, just tired, overwhelmed, avoiding calls, delaying texts, not showing up to things because I needed space. And they had noticed. Of course they had. Lily always did. She could sense my moods before I could name them. What if I had worried her? What if she and Mom were talking about doing something kind, not cruel? I shook that thought off immediately because fear hates compassion. Fear wants easy villains. Fear wants clean stories where people betray you because life is simpler when someone is against you rather than worried about you. But the seed of doubt had been planted, and instead of driving away, I wiped my eyes, got out of the car, and forced myself to walk back inside my house. I needed clarity. But I didn't call Lily. Not yet. Instead, I set my phone on the counter and walked straight to my bathroom, because here's the truth I didn't want to admit. I wasn't thinking clearly, and I knew it. The version of me sitting in the car, replaying the voice memo like it was evidence in a courtroom, felt foreign, paranoid, dramatic, primed for heartbreak. And that scared me more than the memo itself. So I took a shower. Not a peaceful, meditative shower. The kind where you stand under hot water and let your brain empty itself enough to breathe again. The kind where emotions melt just enough for logic to crawl back into the room. By the time I stepped out, wrapped in a towel and staring at myself in the mirror, the anger had dulled. The fear had shifted, and something closer to curiosity sat in its place. Not gentle curiosity, not the type that leads to warm conversations and hugging it out. No, this was sharp, surgical curiosity, the kind you use when you want the truth even if it hurts. I grabbed my phone again. No new messages. No frantic call from Lily apologizing for the memo. No explanation. The silence itself felt suspicious or protective. I opened the memo again, hit play. And this time, instead of focusing on Lily's words, I listened to the background. Not the sigh, not the pacing, something else. A sound so small I had ignored it entirely. The beep of a hospital monitor. I froze. My blood ran cold because suddenly everything twisted all over again. A hospital? Who was at a hospital? My mother? My sister? A family friend? Someone hurt? Someone sick? Someone dying? And now the line, "We need to decide what to do about her," didn't hit like betrayal. It hit like grief, like dread, like two women trying to figure out how to tell me something heartbreaking. My breath stopped. Because what if I hadn't been excluded? What if they weren't planning anything against me? What if they were trying to protect me from something they thought I wasn't ready to hear? My throat tightened painfully. Suddenly, the version of events I had created inside my head felt cruel, not toward them, but toward myself. The assumptions, the accusations, the anger, all of it built on a 12-second clip that didn't tell the whole story. And worse, I had nearly sent a message I couldn't take back. My hands shook as I locked my phone. I couldn't trust myself to reach out yet. I needed the truth, but I needed it without destroying whatever the truth actually was. So, instead of confronting Lily, I did something I've never done before. I went to the one place that never lies, my mother's movements. She is predictable to her core. When she's stressed, she goes to the same place. When she's overwhelmed, she seeks the same quiet corner. When she needs to think, she sits in the one spot the world forgets about. If she was in a hospital, I knew exactly which one. And without overthinking it, I grabbed my coat and walked out the door with a new thought, replacing every paranoid one before it. What if this isn't about me at all? What if I'm the one about to break something precious? And I didn't know then just how right and wrong I was at the same time. The drive to the hospital didn't feel real. It felt like I was watching myself from above, hands gripping the steering wheel too tightly, breaths too shallow, mind racing through every horrifying possibility it could conjure. The whole world outside the windows looked blurry, like the universe had turned the contrast down just enough to make everything feel slightly wrong. I kept telling myself I was being dramatic, that I was overreacting, but my gut knew better. Fear has a way of wrapping itself around your spine like cold hands. You can ignore the thoughts, you can silence the imagination, but you can't silence instinct. And mine wouldn't shut up. When I pulled into the parking lot, the fluorescent lights overhead buzzed loud enough to make my nerves sharper. Hospitals have that smell, sterile, cold, like bleach mixed with silence. I walked inside slowly, almost afraid the building itself would tell me I didn't belong there. At the reception desk, I didn't even know what name to give. Saying my mother felt too vague. Saying my sister felt too dramatic, so I simply gave my last name. "I'm trying to find a family member. I think someone checked in recently under the name Parker," the receptionist typed. And typed a little too long. My stomach dropped with every click. "Yes," she said, finally. "Room 412. Relief and dread collided so fast I swayed slightly on my feet. Someone was here. Someone needed help. And I had assumed the worst of everyone. My chest tightened as I thanked her and walked toward the elevator. On the ride up, the guilt turned into a physical weight pressing heavily behind my ribs. I had spent the past hour blaming my family when they might have been dealing with something terrifying and overwhelming, something they didn't want to tell me until they understood it themselves. As the elevator doors opened, I stepped into a quiet floor where machines hummed softly behind closed doors. Room 412 was halfway down the hall. Every step felt like walking toward a verdict. When I finally reached the door, I hesitated. I expected voices inside, maybe crying, maybe tense whispers. But instead, I heard nothing. No talking, no pacing, just silence. I pushed the door gently, expecting to see the worst possible scene, a hospital bed, machines, someone unconscious. But what I saw made me freeze in place. My mother sat on a chair beside the window, hands clasped tightly in her lap, staring at someone lying in the bed. My sister was seated on the opposite side, legs pulled up to her chest, face buried against her knees, shoulders shaking softly. And lying in the bed, the last person I expected, was my Aunt Claire, the one who lived 3 states away, the one who never told anyone when something was wrong. The one who vanished from family events with cryptic excuses that no one questioned because she always seemed fine. Until now. Her face was pale, her hair was flattened against the pillow, tubes and wires decorated her like cruel jewelry. I sucked in a breath without meaning to, and that tiny gasp made both my mother and sister look up at the same time. Lily's face was blotchy from crying, eyes swollen and red. Not at all the confident, sharp version of her I always saw. My mother stood quickly, shock flickering across her face, shock that I was there, shock that I knew, shock that I had seen everything they weren't ready to tell me. "You're here," Mom whispered. Those words shouldn't have hurt, but they did. They sounded like she didn't expect me, like she had been trying to shield me from something enormous. I swallowed, my voice shaky. "Why didn't you tell me?" Lily stood, wiping her face clumsily, and for the first time in years, she didn't look like my older sister, the family's confident problem solver. She looked small, scared, breakable. "Because," she said quietly, We didn't know how. And we didn't want you to freak out. Her words hit like a twist I didn't see coming, because she wasn't accusing me. She wasn't shutting me out. She was protecting me from the panic she knew I was prone to, protecting me from the rush of worst-case scenarios I couldn't emotionally regulate when things got heavy. I wanted to defend myself. I wanted to say I deserved to know, but then Lily whispered something that collapsed every argument I had prepared. She asked for you. I blinked. Aunt Claire? My sister nodded. Before she fell asleep. She said your name twice. She wanted you to be here. That's why we were talking about what to do, how to tell you, when to tell you. You weren't supposed to hear that memo. All the assumptions I had made, all the anger I had built, all the walls I had thrown up, they felt ridiculous now. I had interpreted fear as betrayal. I had mistaken love for secrecy, and I had made them villains in a story where no one was actually the enemy. My mother stepped closer, her voice trembling for the first time I could ever remember. She collapsed at work, heart failure. They're running tests to see what her options are. My breath caught, because Aunt Claire was young, barely 50, strong, sharp, always laughing, the kind of woman who could command a room with a joke and vanish from it with grace. Seeing her like this was like seeing a mountain crack. "Why didn't you call me?" I whispered again, because I still needed to understand. My mother exhaled slowly, like she'd been holding that breath for hours. "Because you've been overwhelmed lately. And because Claire made us promise not to tell you until she knew if she'd wake up," I froze. "She didn't want me to worry. She didn't want you to carry it," Lily added softly. "You carry too much already and you don't even realize it." The sting behind my eyes burned. Because they weren't judging me. They weren't excluding me. They were trying, awkwardly but sincerely, to keep me from drowning in something they knew would crush me emotionally. All the hurt I had felt, the betrayal, the anger, shifted into something much more painful: guilt. Heavy, crushing guilt. I took one step into the room, then another. My knees almost buckled when I reached the bedside. Seeing her up close, seeing how fragile she looked, made my heart cave in. I reached for her hand hesitantly. It was warm, too warm, fever warm. Tears finally spilled as I whispered, "Why didn't you want me to know?" A soft groan escaped her lips, barely there, but enough to make Lily gasp, enough to make my mother grip the bed rail, enough to make every assumption I'd held collapse completely, because her eyes fluttered open, weakly, painfully, and the first thing she did was whisper my name. I woke up the next morning with the weight of that voice memo still pressing against my ribs. It replayed in loops in my head, not even the words anymore, just the tone, that soft exhale my sister made before speaking, the kind people use only when they're being brutally honest behind closed doors. I told myself I wouldn't check my phone, but that was a lie even I didn't believe. It took barely 5 seconds before I opened our family group chat, ready to see the fallout or the silent confirmation that I really was the outsider I'd feared becoming. Nothing. Not a single message. No frantic texts from Mom, no fake worried check-ins from my sister, no follow-up from the cousin who always somehow knew family drama before the rest of us did. Just eerie stillness, as if the universe wanted me to marinate in my own assumptions a little longer. I tried making coffee, but even that betrayed me, sputtering halfway through and overflowing onto the counter. A perfect metaphor for my emotional stability at that point. While cleaning it up, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was coming. Something heavier than a misplaced voice memo. My mind kept replaying my sister's voice. I don't know if she can handle it. The part that stung wasn't even the words, it was the gentle pity inside them. The kind of tone people use when they've already made a decision about you. I told myself I needed to talk to her, to confront this. to finally stop letting my family build their own version of me. But the truth was simpler and uglier. I was scared. Not of her reaction, but of what she'd confirm. Because if she really felt that way about me, then maybe everyone else did too. Maybe I had been walking around with a self-picture I had built alone, unaware that everyone else had painted me in a different, less flattering color. As I grabbed my keys and stepped out the door, I expected silence from the world. But instead I saw something that froze me. My sister's car, parked in front of my building with the hazard lights blinking. She got out before I even moved, her hair still damp from a rushed shower, wearing the oversized sweater she only wore when she'd cried recently. I swallowed hard, preparing for a fight, ready to demand explanations. But instead she walked fast toward me, and before I could say anything, she wrapped her arms around me in a hug so tight it disarmed my entire body. No hostility, no avoidance, no defensiveness, just warmth. The kind you give someone you're terrified of losing. "You weren't supposed to hear that," she whispered into my shoulder, "but it's not what you think." Her words landed softly but cracked something sharp inside me. I pulled back just enough to see her face, and the redness around her eyes wasn't from guilt. It was from fear. Real fear. She kept talking before I could gather a response, almost like the truth was fighting its way out of her faster than she could control. "I wasn't talking about you," she said, voice shaking. "I wasn't doubting you. I was scared Mom would hurt you again." The contradiction punched the air out of my chest. This was the opposite of what I'd built up in my head all night. My sister wasn't warning Mom about me. She was warning her for me. She grabbed my hands like she needed me to stay grounded while she confessed. "Mom's been planning something," she said. "Something she shouldn't, and I was begging her not to drag you into it." My brain stalled. My mother, the woman who perfected disappointment into a language. What could she possibly be planning that would require shielding me? My sister inhaled deeply, steadying herself. "Mom wants to move back into your old house," she said. "The one you bought after years of saving. She told everyone you'd never say no because you owe her." Heat crawled up my spine, a slow burning disbelief that turned into a bitter laugh. Of course. Of course the woman who belittled every decision I made believed she still owned the rights to my adulthood. But my sister wasn't done. She squeezed my hands tighter. "I told her she was wrong. I told her you finally built something for yourself, and she needed to stop treating your life like an extension of hers." My heart twisted. This was the twist I never expected. My sister, the one I thought was conspiring with Mom, had actually been defending me, fighting for me, and that voice memo I thought was her judging me, it was her begging Mom to stop hurting me. I felt stupid and relieved and angry and grateful, all at once, all crashing into each other like emotional traffic with no lights to direct it. "Why didn't you just tell me?" I asked quietly. She let out a trembling breath. "Because every time I try to protect you, you assume I'm siding with her," she said. "And honestly, I can't blame you for thinking that. She's always made sure we were on opposite sides without saying it directly." And that was the moment it hit me. The real betrayal wasn't my sister. It was the wedge our mother had planted between us for years, feeding each of us different stories, different expectations, different versions of each other. Not to keep us apart, but to keep us orbiting around her. My sister wiped her eyes and stepped back. "Please," she whispered, "can we talk before you assume I'm against you? Just this once?" The irony wasn't lost on me. I had spent years preparing for betrayal and completely missed the loyalty standing right in front of me. I didn't answer her right away. The request hung between us like something fragile, a small, trembling truth that could shatter if either of us breathed wrong. For years, I'd believed we were opponents in a game I never agreed to play. And now, here she was, asking me to do the one thing I had always assumed was impossible. Trust her. Really trust her. Not the polite, surface-level trust you offer someone at a holiday dinner, the real kind, the kind that demands you unlearn a decade of misinterpretations. We walked up to my apartment in silence, each of us carrying a whole lifetime of misunderstandings on our shoulders. When we stepped inside, she looked around, and the strangest thing happened. Her eyes softened, not in pity, not in judgment, but in something that almost felt like admiration. "You've made a real home," she said quietly. I almost laughed. Weeks ago, I would have taken that sentence as an insult disguised as a compliment. Today, for the first time, it sounded genuine. Maybe the difference wasn't her. Maybe it was me finally hearing her without letting Mom's voice translate her intentions for her. She sat on the edge of my couch, hands clasped, like she was afraid to break something. "There's more you need to know," she said, and instinctively I braced myself for bad news. But then I remembered, nothing in this story was supposed to follow the expected direction. So instead of bracing for impact, I listened. "Mom's been rewriting the past," she said. "Not in big, dramatic ways, in small ways that you wouldn't notice unless you stepped back." I frowned, confused. She continued, "You know how she always says she supported you, even when you struggled? That she was the only one who believed in you?" I nodded, because I had heard that speech more times than I could count. "That's not what she said when you were working nights and barely sleeping," my sister whispered. "She used to sit with me at the kitchen table and tell me you were wasting your life, that you'd never get anywhere, that you were a cautionary tale." Her voice broke on the last sentence. That hurt in ways I didn't want to admit, but before I could sink into that pain, my sister cut through it with something unexpected. "And every time I defended you," she said, "every single time. I told her she was wrong, that you were trying harder than anyone I knew, but she didn't want to hear it, and eventually, I stopped correcting her because I realized she didn't want truth, she wanted an audience." That flipped everything again, the narrative I thought I knew, the roles I assigned each of us without question, the bitterness I had allowed to calcify inside me. Suddenly it made sense. The glares, the silent tension, the feeling that my sister was always just a few feet away emotionally, even when she stood beside me physically. It wasn't because she didn't care. It was because she was exhausted from being the emotional shield between me and our mother, while I thought she was the sword. She reached into her bag and pulled out her phone. "I need to show you something," she said. She scrolled, then handed it to me. Messages, dozens of them, from Mom. Screenshots she had saved. Conversations she had archived, not because she planned on using them one day, but because she needed proof for herself that she wasn't imagining the manipulation. Message after message, I read things I didn't expect. "Don't tell her about the dinner. She makes things awkward. She's too emotional right now, best to leave her off the guest list. She needs tough love. It's the only way she'll learn responsibility." But the one that made my chest tighten was from last week. "Don't encourage her. She'll think she's doing well." My sister watched my face carefully, like she had been waiting years for me to finally see what she had seen all along. "I didn't send these to hurt you," she said softly. "I sent them because you've been blaming me for things Mom orchestrated. And she let you." A silence spread between us that wasn't uncomfortable, just heavy with realization. For the first time in years, I felt the ground shift under me in a way that wasn't destabilizing, but grounding. Like the truth had weight, and finally I could stand on it. Then she leaned back and exhaled a shaky laugh. "And the voice memo? God, I knew that was going to blow up." I winced at the memory. She waved a hand. "Let me be clear. When I said I don't know if she can handle it, I wasn't talking about capability. I was talking about how much you've already carried." Another contradiction, another expectation overturned. "I know you're stronger than anyone gives you credit for," she continued, "but even strong people deserve protection sometimes." That hit something deep, because somewhere inside me, I had always believed that being strong meant being alone. And here she was, offering a version of strength I had never considered, shared. But then she added something that made my stomach twist. "There's one more thing you need to hear," she said. "Something Mom told me about you." She paused, and for a moment I felt the old panic rise, but I forced myself to stay still. "She said you weren't invited to the last family gathering because she didn't want you to overshadow your cousin's engagement announcement. She said you always make things about yourself." I stared at her, stunned. "I didn't even know there was a gathering." "I know," my sister said gently. "Mom made sure of that." And suddenly the voice memo that started all this felt tiny compared to the truth flooding my living room. My entire narrative about my sister, the resentment, the assumptions, the emotional distance, had been built on foundations my mother carefully shaped. But those foundations were cracking now, not with betrayal, but with unexpected clarity. Then my sister did something she hadn't done since we were teenagers. She reached out, placed her hand over mine, and whispered, "I've been trying to protect you for years, but you can't protect someone who thinks you're the enemy." Her words lodged in my throat. She was right, painfully, beautifully, terrifyingly right. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel alone in our family story. I felt partnered, aligned, seen, but it wasn't peace. Not yet. Because now that the truth was out, we still had to face the person who had been controlling the script all along. And neither of us was ready for what confronting her would reveal next. The next morning felt colder than usual, the kind of cold that sneaks into your bones before you even step outside. But my sister insisted we meet early, before work, before excuses, before doubt could slip back into the cracks of everything we'd just rebuilt. We sat in my car outside our mother's house, the engine humming low, the windshield fogging slightly at the edges. Neither of us moved. Neither of us reached for the door. "Are you ready?" she finally whispered. I almost said no, not because I was afraid of confrontation, but because I had no idea who I would meet on the other side of that front door. The mother I grew up trying to impress, or the woman whose messages I'd read the night before, each one peeling back a layer I wasn't prepared to see. "Ready enough," I said, and somehow that was enough for both of us. She got out first, I followed. The house looked exactly the same as always. Perfectly trimmed hedges, a wreath hung too early for the season, curtains slightly parted as if always watching. I'd never noticed how staged it felt before, like a place trying hard to look like a home. My sister knocked. We didn't wait long. The door opened, and there she was, our mother in her soft cardigan and polite smile, the one she used when pretending everything was fine. "Girls, what a surprise," she said. Her voice carried that familiar, syrupy sweetness that made everything sound harmless, even when it wasn't. But this time, I noticed something else beneath it, a flicker of caution. My sister stepped inside first. I followed, and the moment the door closed, the air shifted. Mom gestured toward the living room. Sit, I'll make coffee." She always used hospitality as deflection. I exchanged a glance with my sister. She gave a small shake of her head. "No coffee, no distractions, not today. We need to talk," she said firmly. Mom paused, hands tightening just slightly around the handle of her mug. "What's wrong?" she asked, but her eyes didn't fully settle on either of us. Practiced vagueness, almost strategic. My sister didn't dance around it. "The voice memo wasn't about what you told her it was." Mom's smile didn't fade. It froze, a subtle, delicate fracture. She turned toward me, eyebrows raised in feigned confusion. "Sweetheart, did you misunderstand something? This used to work on me, the softening, the careful tilt of her head, the implication that I was simply sensitive, emotional, misreading. But not today, not after last night." I heard everything I said, and we compared notes. Her eyes flicked to my sister. Quick, sharp, defensive. "You involved her?" she asked. "Why would you do that?" "Because she deserved the truth." my sister said before I could respond. Not the edited version you've been feeding both of us. A flash of irritation crossed Mom's face. Quick, barely visible, but there. I only tell you things to protect you, she said, looking at me. Do you really think I'd ever try to hurt you? Yes, I said quietly. I think you already have. The silence that followed was thick and pulsing. She looked genuinely stunned, but not in a wounded way. More like someone offended that her story was no longer the one everyone agreed to perform. What exactly do you think I've done? She demanded. My sister reached into her bag and placed a stack of printed messages on the coffee table. Our mother didn't even look at them. You went through my private texts? She snapped. That's an invasion of privacy. Not as big as the invasion you did in her life, my sister fired back. You isolated her. You fed her half-truths. You made her believe I didn't care about her. Mom exhaled slowly, as if she were disappointed rather than guilty. I never meant for you two to fight. You created the fight, I said, my voice steadier than I expected, and you stood back while we bled. That one hit. I watched her swallow hard, the first real crack, but then she regrouped quickly, gathering her composure like a shield. I only said those things because I was worried about you, she insisted. I didn't want you getting hurt. You hurt me more than any of the things you warned me about, I replied. My sister leaned in. Mom, the reason we're here isn't to attack you. It's to stop pretending this pattern is normal. Mom's jaw tightened. Pattern? What pattern? My sister didn't hesitate. You turn us against each other. Then you act innocent when we fall apart. You call it protection. It's manipulation. The word hung in the room like smoke. Mom flinched. Manipulation? I would never... You did, I said gently. Maybe not to be cruel, maybe because it made you feel needed, but you did. For the first time, she didn't have a quick answer. Instead, she sat slowly on the edge of the couch, the weight of our words pressing down on her like something she'd tried escaping for years. I never wanted to lose either of you, she whispered. My sister softened, but didn't step back. You didn't lose us, she said. You just taught us to lose each other. Our mother blinked rapidly, and for a moment I saw something I hadn't expected. Vulnerability, not the performative kind. The real kind. The kind that slips through when someone runs out of rehearsed lines. I'm sorry, she whispered. I didn't realize. And for once, the sentence trailed off without something manipulative tucked behind it. A long silence settled between us, but for the first time in years, it didn't feel suffocating. It felt possible. Not healed, not perfect, but possible. My sister reached for my hand. I took it without hesitation. Mom watched the gesture, and something in her expression shifted. Not jealousy, not defensiveness, but something closer to relief. Then my sister stood and said, We're going to lunch, all three of us. No secrets, no roles, just honesty. Mom swallowed. I don't know if I can promise perfection, she said. We're not asking for perfection, I said. We're asking for real, she nodded. Slow, unsure, but willing. And in the strangest, most contradictory twist of all, the story that began as a misunderstanding built on suspicion was slowly becoming something unexpected, not tragedy, not betrayal, but the uneasy beginning of healing. But even as we walked toward the door together, side by side, I couldn't shake the feeling that something else was coming. Something none of us saw yet. Something that would test our new honesty in ways we weren't prepared for. You'd think that after a confrontation like that, the next chapter would be peaceful, right? Cue soft music, slow healing, weekly family dinners where everyone cries once and then laughs twice. That's how it goes in movies. Real life is ruder. Real life gives you a moment of relief and then immediately asks, So, did you actually learn anything, or are you just pretending? For a little while, I convinced myself we were in the things are finally better phase. Lunch that day was strange, but not in a bad way, in a new way. The three of us sat in a booth at a small cafe downtown, the kind with chip mugs and waitresses who call everyone hone. No one performed. No one pretended. Mom didn't dominate the conversation. Lily didn't shrink into mediator mode. I didn't sit there silently trying to guess what everyone was really thinking behind their eyes. We just existed. Messy, quiet, cautious. At one point, Mom actually said the words, "I'm sorry," without following it up with, "But you have to understand," or, "But you're too sensitive, just, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have kept things from you." It wasn't perfect. It wasn't enough to erase years of being rotated into villain or victim whenever it suited the family narrative. But it was more accountability than I'd seen from her in my entire life, and part of me wanted so badly to believe it was the start of something real that I wrapped it in bubble wrap and stored it somewhere hopeful. Weeks went by. We didn't magically become a healthy family, but the tone shifted. Text started sounding less filtered. Phone calls felt a little less like interviews. Lily and I talked more often, and instead of dissecting Mom's moods, we talked about our own. Therapy got easier. Work felt lighter. For once, my family wasn't the constant background noise of my anxiety. And because the universe has a twisted sense of humor, that's exactly when the next test arrived. It came in the form of money. Of course it did. If relationships are mirrors, money is a magnifying glass, and ours was about to catch sunlight at the worst possible angle. One Thursday night, I got a call from my cousin Marcus, the unofficial town crier of our extended family. "Hey, cuz," he said casually, which was suspicious in itself because Marcus never called me unless he wanted something or had something to stir. "You talked to your mom today?" "Not yet. Why?" I asked, already bracing. "Huh," he said, drawing it out. "Interesting. She just told everyone at Aunt Diane's that she might sell her house so she can help you get back on your feet." I froze. "Back on my feet?" I repeated. "I'm standing just fine." "That's what I thought," he replied. But the way she said it made it sound like you're one missed paycheck away from living in your car. A familiar heat climbed up my neck. She actually said that? Not in those exact words, he said, but you know how she is. She paints pictures. I did know how she was. I also knew how he was. Marcus loved stirring the pot as much as breathing, but that didn't mean he was lying. I thanked him and hung up, my brain already sprinting, after everything that had happened, after finally telling the truth, after calling out her manipulation. She was still out there, painting me as fragile, helpless, dependent. I texted Lily. "Did Mom tell people she's selling her house to help me get back on my feet?" The typing bubble appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally, "She mentioned wanting to help you with something. I don't think it came out right." That answer did not help. I called her. "What's going on?" I asked, skipping hello. She sighed. "First, I should have told you before saying anything to anyone else." My stomach sank. There it was again, the pattern. Talk about me before talking to me. "I've been thinking about selling the house," she continued. "It's too big, too much to maintain, and I know you've been wanting to open your own studio. I thought maybe I could help you with the startup funds." My brain hesitated. This was not the villain monologue I expected. "You wanted to what, help you?" she repeated. "Not because you were incapable, because you've worked harder than anyone, and I never made it easier. I want to, for once." It should have been sweet. It should have been one of those rare moments where a parent finally recognizes the effort their child has poured into surviving. But all I could hear was Marcus's version of the story echoing over hers. "Get back on your feet. Not help you grow, not invest in your dream. Get back on your feet." As if I'd spent all this time crawling. The anger returned, quieter this time, but colder. The kind that doesn't explode, just calcifies. "Why did you tell everyone before you told me?" I asked, because that was the part still lodged in my throat. I was excited, she said softly. I was proud. It came out wrong. The thing is, if you've spent years being misrepresented, you stop hearing intention. You only hear pattern. And pattern screamed in my ear louder than her apology. I could have believed her. I could have paused. I could have said, okay, that hurt, but thank you for wanting to help. Instead, I did what I've always done best when I feel cornered. I built a story in my head where I was under attack and then acted accordingly. That night, I wrote an email to the extended family. Not just Mom, not just Lily, everyone. Aunts, uncles, cousins, the whole gallery. I didn't insult her. I didn't curse. I didn't scream. I did something worse. I was precise, calm. I laid out how I'd worked for everything I had, how I didn't need anyone selling their home on my behalf, how any offers to save me without speaking to me first were unwanted and patronizing. I wrapped it in language about healthy boundaries and respect for autonomy, but underneath it was a public defense against a private wound. I hit send, and for about 30 minutes, I felt powerful. Then the replies started. Some were supportive. Good for you, standing up for yourself, proud of you. Some were neutral. Miscommunication happens. Hope it works out. But the one that sucked the air out of my lungs came from my aunt, just one line. Honey, she wasn't selling her house to rescue you. She was downsizing so she could leave you the difference in her will. My fingers went numb. I stared at the sentence so long the words blurred. In one impulsive attempt to protect myself from a story I'd lived for years, I'd just humiliated the one person who had finally tried to rewrite it in a better way. And I didn't know it yet, but that email would be the thing she never fully forgave me for. Not because it hurt her reputation, but because it told her, in front of everyone, that I trusted my fear more than I trusted her. The thing about regret is that it never walks in the door loudly. It doesn't kick it open, doesn't throw a dramatic shadow, doesn't declare itself like a villain in a monologue. No, regret enters quietly, soft-footed, polite. It sits down beside you and waits for you to notice that your chest suddenly feels heavier, your breathing slightly uneven, your mind replaying one specific decision like a scratched vinyl stuck on the worst part of the song. That's what the next 48 hours felt like. Regret settling beside me, wordless but unavoidable, while I tried to pretend everything was fine. I avoided my phone, avoided social media, avoided my email inbox entirely. Every ding or vibration made my stomach clench, as if each notification were a fuse I'd accidentally lit. I told myself I needed space, clarity, time to think, but the truth was uglier. I was afraid. Not of confrontation, God knows I had handled enough of that, but of confirmation. Confirmation that I had messed up. Confirmation that the very people I thought were plotting behind my back hadn't been plotting at all. Confirmation that I had swung first when no one was swinging at me. But eventually avoidance collapses under its own weight. It was Sunday night when the message finally came. Not an email, not a text, but a voicemail. From Lily. My thumb hovered over the play button for a full minute. When I finally pressed it, her voice came through, softer than usual, like she had rehearsed the words 3 times and still wasn't sure she got them right. Hey, I know you're overwhelmed. Mom's overwhelmed too. I'm not calling to take sides. I need you to understand something. What she was trying to do, it wasn't pity. It wasn't condescending. It wasn't some scheme. She was proud of you. She wanted to help because she never did before, and she regrets that more than you know. She didn't tell people because she thought you were failing. She told them because she was excited to finally give you something without strings attached. And now she's hurt. Not angry. Hurt. Call me when you're ready. The voicemail ended. My apartment felt too quiet, suddenly expanding around me like the walls moved back 5 feet. I sat there, frozen, listening to the last few seconds of silence over and over as if the pause itself held answers. It didn't. It just made everything feel worse. I'd spent so long bracing for betrayal that I'd forgotten what good intentions look like. They don't always arrive gracefully. They don't always sound perfect. Sometimes they stumble, spill, come out sideways, but that doesn't make them a trap. And I had treated them like one anyway. The next morning, guilt wasn't even the right word for what followed. It was something deeper, disorientation. Like my internal compass had spun too many times and now couldn't remember which direction pointed home. For years, I'd lived with this narrative carved into the back of my skull. They don't choose you, they don't support you, they don't see you, and suddenly that narrative wasn't wrong, but it also wasn't the whole picture. No one was imperfect, no one in this family was, but what she'd done wasn't some manipulation. It was clumsy love, awkward love, late love, but love, and I had answered it with suspicion, sharp enough to draw blood. By noon, avoiding her felt childish. Every minute stretched out like a reminder that I had two options: fix it or let it calcify into another family wound we'd pretend didn't exist while it quietly poisoned everything. So I grabbed my keys, put on the first jacket I saw, and drove. No plan, no script, no idea what I would say, just movement because staying still felt like cowardice. Mom's house looked smaller than usual when I pulled up. Isn't that funny how guilt can shrink a building? I knocked once, then again. When she opened the door, the surprise on her face wasn't sharp. It was soft, tired, like she'd been carrying her own version of regret these last few days. "Hi," I said. It was ridiculous how small the word sounded after everything. "Hi," she replied, equally small. We stood there for a moment, two grown adults looking at each other like teenagers after the first fight they didn't know how to fix. She stepped aside, I walked in, and for a minute neither of us said anything. Finally, she spoke. "You sent a very public email." Her voice wasn't accusatory, it just factual. "I know," I murmured. "And I shouldn't have." She nodded. "That hurt." "I know." Another nod. Not forgiving, not condemning, just acknowledging the truth sitting between us. When I finally explained what Marcus had said, her eyebrows pulled together. "That's not what I said at all." "I know that now," I admitted. "I just reacted. I let old patterns talk louder than you did." And there it was. The thing I hadn't said out loud until that moment. The thing that cracked everything open. Old patterns, old wounds, old narratives. They had become my reflex, my autopilot, my default interpretation of everything she did. Mom took a slow breath. "I should have talked to you first," she said. "I should have made sure you understood how proud I am. I know I haven't always been easy. I know I haven't always been there the way you needed." Hearing that from her felt like a table I'd been leaning against for years had finally shifted. A little unstable, but real. "I'm sorry," I said, "for the email, for assuming the worst." She didn't hug me. She didn't cry. She didn't grab my hand. Instead, she said something much quieter and somehow much heavier. "I don't blame you for assuming the worst. I just wish you'd trusted me enough to ask before you acted." That sentence stayed in my chest long after I left, because she was right. She had hurt me in the past. She had made me feel small, overlooked, secondary. But this time, the person who broke trust was me. The funny thing is, I thought this story would be another tale of betrayal, manipulation, hidden messages, or family sabotage, just like all the others we tell ourselves, to make sense of chaos. But life, in its infuriating wisdom, decided to flip the script. For once, the villain wasn't who I thought. It was the version of myself living inside a story that stopped being true years ago. And the worst part, the people I thought were plotting against me were actually trying to love me the best way they knew how. The strange thing about healing is that it never announces itself. There's no grand trumpet, no fireworks, no slow Mojan montage with inspirational music. It happens quietly, in moments that seem too ordinary to matter. A pause before speaking, a softer tone you didn't expect, a conversation that doesn't explode the way it would have a year earlier. And that's exactly how the final chapter of this mess unfolded. Not with vengeance, not with triumph, but with a slow, steady unraveling of assumptions I didn't even realize I'd been living inside. The morning after I spoke to Mom, I woke up feeling like someone had rearranged the furniture inside my chest. It wasn't quite peace, but it wasn't guilt either. Something in between. Something gentler. I grabbed my phone, scrolled past the unread texts I had ignored for days, and found the one message still sitting at the top like a blinking warning light. "Lily, let me know when you're ready to talk." I typed, "Now?" Her response came so fast it made me blink. "Come over." When I walked into her apartment, Lily was pacing, arms folded, eyes narrowed, the worried sister version of a general preparing for battle. "You look like you slept inside a tornado," she said. "Feels accurate," I answered. She didn't laugh, not yet. Instead, she gestured toward the couch, and we both sat. Two women who'd grown up in the same house but walked out with different scars. "I need you to tell me everything," Lily said. "Not the short version, not the angry version, the real version." So I did. I told her about the voicemail, the misinterpretation, the spiral, the email, the meltdown, the regret, and Mom. By the time I finished, she exhaled like she'd been holding her breath the whole time. "Okay, that's bad," she said frankly. "I know," I muttered. "But also, it's fixable." Fixable. The word felt too hopeful, too light for the weight in my chest. But Lily wasn't done. "You think this whole family's been against you your entire life," she said, not unkindly. "And yeah, sometimes Mom dropped the ball. Sometimes Dad did too. But you can't keep assuming everyone's trying to hurt you. People aren't as calculating as you think." "I didn't think she was calculating," I said. "I thought she was ashamed of me." And she wasn't. She was proud. You know how rare it is for her to brag? She practically hyperventilates when she talks about your job. I blinked. "My job?" Lily nodded. "She tells people she doesn't understand half the things you do, but she's never been so proud." That sentence didn't land lightly. It landed like a weight I didn't know I'd been carrying suddenly set on the floor. Proud. Her? Of me? It sounded impossible, but it wasn't. Not anymore. Not with everything I'd learned over the last few days. When I got home that afternoon, I expected quiet, maybe the kind that feels empty. Instead, the quiet felt like space, room to breathe, room to think. And that's what I did. Think. About the past version of me who lived defensively because she had to. About the newer version of me who never updated the script, even after the circumstances changed. About how easy it is to mistake old pain for present danger. That night, I picked up my phone and wrote a message I didn't think I'd ever send. To Mom, "I know we've both made mistakes. Can we start over slowly?" Her reply came a minute later. "Yes, slowly is perfect." In the days that followed, everything softened, not magically, but steadily. Mom started texting good morning again. Lily sent memes that made me snort. Dad even called once, awkwardly asking if I needed help fixing the porch light he broke 3 years ago. And me? I learned that rebuilding trust isn't one grand gesture, it's countless tiny ones. A text, a clarified sentence, a pause instead of an assumption, a conversation instead of conclusions. The world didn't suddenly transform into a perfect Hallmark movie. Mom still hovered when she didn't need to. I still bristled quicker than I should. Lily still played mediator even when no one asked her to. But something crucial changed. We stopped acting like enemies. We started acting like people trying imperfectly to love each other. And here's the twist. The final contradiction in a story built on contradictions. The voice memo that started this entire storm, the one I assumed was about me, the one that sent me spiraling into war mode, it wasn't even criticism. It wasn't sabotage. It wasn't gossip. It was Lily telling Mom she wished I knew how proud she was of me, that she wished I could see it without second-guessing it, that she wished, for once, I would believe I was wanted. The memo I thought was an attack was actually a love letter I was never meant to hear. So yeah, this story didn't end the way betrayal stories usually end. There's no revenge, no courtroom showdown, no dramatic takedown or family implosion. The villain wasn't Mom, wasn't Lily, wasn't anyone in this house. The villain was a version of me, still fighting battles that ended years ago. And once I laid her to rest, finally, gently, honestly, everything else settled too. So let me leave you with a question. Have you ever misread love as judgment? Ever defended yourself from an attack that wasn't coming? Ever built armor for a war no one else was fighting? Tell me in the comments. You might not be the only one learning how to stop swinging at ghosts.